information I wanted to share with you. And then I really just want to spend the bulk of this 30 minutes just letting you fire away questions you may have, answer them the best we can. The good news is that what you'll see listed on the bulletin for spring, we didn't have any major changes from the fall, so we're able to roll forward with what was out there. Now, I also know that this was something I got from Sullivan yesterday. I know that in the fall, you guys were kind of watching everybody else open their Christmas presents and get to play, and you guys weren't yet. So what was sent out in the fall, communication-wise, may not have been at the top of your radar as it wasn't pertaining to you at that time. So I know a lot of this will be repeat information, but may not necessarily be information that you were 100% focused on in the fall. So really the couple of things I wanted to hit on to start with are just going to be kind of where our timelines are. And so you're looking tomorrow starts practice. You'll have Thursday, Friday, Saturday helmets only. Again, those are practices 1, 2, 3. If you had a later start, if you're not able to get going tomorrow, your first 3 practices will be helmets only. Small group work's going to be limited to 5 to 10 students. They're supposed to stay with that group all week. I think at this point, when we wrote this stuff in the fall, a lot of this cohorting and all these different things were brand new to us. I think a lot of this is probably old hat at this point for our schools. One-on-one type drills are limited to 20 minutes per day. All this stuff is in the bulletin, by the way. No shared water of any kind. That's one of the big ones. Weekly sanitizer spray down of all gear. The preference would be that you're getting laundry done, having your kids take their stuff home. 1 practice per day, no 2-a-days. No locker room use still remains in effect. As far as having team meetings and things like that in a locker room, you can go in still 10 to 12 at a time, use that as a changing room, but it's not to be an area where the team congregates and you're packing 40 or 50 into those small locker rooms like we're used to. We're going to avoid that. When you come back after the weekend, Monday and Tuesday will be full pads, no contact. So that's the same as normal. Again, that's practice 4 and 5. And then on Wednesday, you can go full contact. Full contact limited to maximum of 70 minutes, 35 minutes per day. So 70 minutes for the week, 35 minutes per day is the maximum you can go to there. And then 7-on-7 inside drills limited 25 minutes per day. So that'd be for each one of those. So if you wanted to do a separate 7-on-7 for your JV kids, that's not going to count towards your total 25 minutes. It's a kid should not be involved in more than 25 minutes of 7-on-7 or inside. If you're doing inside, the preference would be if you can get some work done with hand shields just to avoid a little bit of that one-on-one contact. That's great. As a coach, I know that's not necessarily always going to be the case. It's going to work out for what we need to get done, but there's a way to do it with some hand shields, get that in there and get that done. And then there are changes for game day. I'll go over real quick. Your team box, send it on the sidelines to the 10-yard line. We're leaving that in. I didn't see a lot of teams actually using that to keep their team spread out in the fall. It just meant they walked down to the 10-yard line and stayed as a large group. If we want to continue doing this, let's see if we can't go ahead and get them to actually be spaced out. The whole idea was to have more room on the sideline for the team, not just to let everybody huddle down to the 10-yard line. So if we can focus on that, you guys stay at least 6 feet back from the sideline. There's nothing new, but it's allowing our officials plenty of room to work and not have any social distancing issues while they work. Again, no locker room use. Again, changing rooms only, halftime, things like that will be outside. This is spring, so in the fall we were dealing with cold. We're going to deal with that some in the spring, but we're also going to have inclement weather that comes in at times. Guys, be smart about it. If hypothermia or lightning strike are imminent, I'm going to say that's more dangerous than the threat of COVID at that point. And so do the right things and get your guys inside where they need to be. So if we've got inclement weather coming through and you need to get into gyms or cafeterias, just use your social distancing that you use in your building right now to make that work. So don't reinvent the wheel on how to do that, but get them inside so they're avoiding those issues. If you do have a Friday night game where temperatures are going to drop and we're getting down into those single digits and stuff during the game at halftime, go inside, find a warming area. That is a danger piece that we can work on as well. So if you can open up a gym, you got plenty of room there to space guys out in your gym, or if you got 2 gyms, or if you got a cafeteria, use what you would normally use within your school these days for social distancing in those areas. And you can follow the SMAC guidelines on what the temperatures are for when you need to have a warming area. Basically, it's when you're getting down into those single digits. We need to figure something out for halftime. hopefully we don't have a whole lot of that, and we'll have it early. And then in theory, I'm probably going to jinx this, but in theory, we'll start to get warm as the season goes. So hopefully that's an issue for a couple of weeks, and then we begin to warm up as we move forward. The other two things that are not in the bulletin that'll be different for spring. One is you may actually have a 7-man officiating crew come to do your game. This is going to be at no extra cost to you, but it's allowing our officials time to experiment with 7-man mechanics that the NCAA uses. We have a plethora of officials available with only a limited number of games this spring. So we're going to allow those guys to get some mechanics in on 7-man and see if that's something that we would look at doing in the future at some point. It's not to say it's imminent for next year, anything like that. It's just a time for us to use as an experiment and make that work. The other thing I've gotten several questions on, if you have anybody that is playing basketball or is wrestling, if they make it into the postseason, they're going to miss practices, obviously, because they're having regionals this weekend or basketball playoffs, et cetera. If they come directly from basketball or wrestling without missing a day, so they go to regionals this weekend and don't make it to state, and so they are out there on Monday, then they would join you right where you are. They'll jump into pads. They don't have to have those 3 days with no pads. We're going to say that the physical conditioning part and heat acclimation is not going to be an issue like it would be in August to come out in March. So whatever day they join you, they could join on that. Whatever day of the sequence you're in with practice, they could join on that day. If they come in after you're into full pads, they must get 4 days of practice in full pads. If they skip a day coming from wrestling, or basketball, so let's say you make it a round or two in basketball, they're done on Tuesday, but they don't show up on Wednesday, they show up on Thursday. Because there's a gap there, we're going to make them have to go back through and have those non-padded practices also. So they need to come right in so they don't lose anything from what they were just working on, jump right in and get going so that you can have them for those 4 padded practices and get them playing. I want them to be able to get hit a little bit and get used to having those pads on before they go play a game at full varsity.
Do it so that I can get stuff cleaned and then run this dishwasher.
I know they're in shape coming from basketball
before I have to go to work.
They're not getting hit the same way in basketball and wrestling than they are in football. So we need to get them out there in pads, make sure everything fits right. They're comfortable. We're going to make sure they get those minimum of 4 days of padded practice full set before they go play. But hopefully that allows them to not miss as much or miss any games by going through that route also is the goal. Other than that, those are kind of the big pieces I had. I know we're kind of going through this kind of quick. Again, the bulk of this is in the bulletin that's posted online now. You'll see a 2021 spring COVID football bulletin that's up there, so it has all the information. So that was the main pieces I wanted to cover. I wanted to go fast so I can just open it up and let you guys fire away at questions and see if I can answer anything that is pressing for tomorrow or just in general. Okay, I see one in the chat from Aaron. Film review guidelines. So that was put into place in the fall when a lot of places were not in person yet. And what we're looking at doing there is not having coming back on Saturday. Essentially, if you come back on Saturday after a Friday night game, you want to do a film review. If your custodians have already come through and wiped down the building and had it disinfected for the next week, we don't want to come in and ruin the work they've done by coming in and having a film session. So that's why film review went to a virtual only, so that we're not coming back into a facility that's already been set for the next week. So we did leave that in there. CDPHE did not want that out, so we're leaving that in. So your film review will have to be some type of a virtual type piece, or doing it. I personally think you can come in on Monday because that's the school day anyway. If you come in on Monday and get in the classrooms and follow your typical guidelines, whatever you have in your building, get them in different classrooms you're allowed to have and break down that way. I think that's that is.
I would go like
on Saturday,
30 on one side, 45 on the other.
In fact, because you were in there.
This guy keeps shouting about his dishwasher on his Zoom.
Other questions? So Ridgeview has decided not to play. So right now, those that were in the league with Ridgeview will have 5 games on their schedule instead of 6. So everyone's schedule is loaded into max reps already for you. So that should all be set up for you. Unfortunately, you guys that had Ridgeview in your league, you're going to have 5 games right now. My assumption, just based on what's going on with wrestling and basketball the last couple of days. We're going to get back into scheduling on the fly. I will be fully involved in that again, like I was in the fall. If you know that you're going into quarantine or can't play, let me know. I'll keep a database running on helping to partner teams up to get them games. So as of right now, if you've got Ridgeview on your schedule week 1, I don't wish this on anybody, but we're going to need to wait to see if anybody goes into quarantine before week 1 to find that game. Otherwise, that individual school may end up with 5 as we work through this. It just gives us an odd number of teams, and so we're just going to have to wait and see what other quarantines and things like that happen to get this pushed through. Not the best, but it is what it is. Let's see if we need a warrant at halftime. Yes, you could extend halftime, talk with your official. You can go up to the 20 minutes like you would for a homecoming game. So talk to your officials prior to so they know that's what's going on there. Let's see here. I see they're going fast here. I saw something about cheerleaders and band. That is local discretion. You are allowed to do that. They need to be separated. So cheerleaders, I would have you reach out to Jen in our office, but they need to be, I believe it's 25 feet from the field and 25 feet from the bleachers to be able to have their own space. Band is also similar. They need to be separated from the field and also separated from your spectators so that they're able to operate in their own area. So if you lose a game, shoot me an email. I'll create next week, once I get wrestling regionals under my belt here today and tomorrow, I'll create a Google sheet that I'll share out with you guys. You can put in there if you've lost a game, or if you're looking for a JV game or a C team game, put those in there as well. I'll put a tab in there for lower level games. But if you lose a game, number one is email me, because if everybody emails me, I can put you in contact very quickly with who else has lost one. Similarly, if you think you may go into quarantine, if there's, hey, we're waiting on a test, but we may not be able to play, let me know, because I can at least set up with a, hey, this might happen type situation so we can move quicker when it does. So if you think there's a chance you may not play, it doesn't hurt to let me know so we can have things kind of scheduled off the books in case it does fall through that you're not able to play. We can gather that information and move quickly. But shoot me an email, let me know that you may not be able to play or cannot play, and then we'll also have the Google sheet that you can put on there as well. And when I find teams, I'll be putting them in there as well if you haven't already. So that's a place to go and use as a resource, as well as talking to me to find where games are. Minimum number of games for playoffs. We're going to go, you need to have 4. If we get down to the end and and that just wasn't possible because quarantine, which I'm hopeful that's not the case, but if we do get down to the end and we're at that situation, we can look at making that 3. Right now, we're gonna go with 4. You got to have 4 games to get in, because if we go to 3, the data points we're using to seed it get really skewed if we've only got 3 games in there. So we're gonna say you need to have 4. If they get down to the end and the classification only has 2 teams that have 4 games, then we'll make that adjustment and go to 3 if we need to. The goal is that we're following policies and are able to get everybody playing so we can get to 4. So as far as how, total number of players, you're maxed at 50 on a roster. So you can have 50 kids on the sideline. Don't have a max number on coaches. I didn't put that into our variance, so we don't have to worry about that piece. And then your total number of, you're allowed 4 student assistants on the sideline. So it's a student trainer, manager, et cetera. 2 ball boys on the sideline. Is what you have there as well. We will continue what we did in the fall with no coin toss. At the beginning of the game, I'll just email out, here's the winner of the toss. We have a kind of the little group here that's getting these emails. I have a group email set up, so I'll just send you guys that. It'll be on Thursday when we send that. And when that comes out on Thursday, that is good for all games until the following Thursday. So if that is varsity, JVC, whatever you're playing, that'll say the home team or the visiting team has won the toss, and the officials are used to this, they've gone through it, and on that during pregame meetings with coaches. We'll email that for everybody across the state on what's going on there. The other piece that'll be a little different, please have your clock operator meet the back judge on the field in pregame rather than the back judge coming up to the press box. So the back judge doesn't have to come into a facility in the press box. Have your back judge come down, have your clock operator come meet the back judge down the field. So that's one other small change there. 8 teams will still make the playoffs. So that is correct. So it'll be the same. And then home and away determined for scheduling purposes. We didn't actually look at team names. It was all built into a database system where we just plugged in, excuse me, it had a round robin format based on the number of teams that were in a league. We just type teams on each line, hit enter, and it spits out, here's the schedule, 3 home, 3 away for everybody. So that's how that was done. So there wasn't a piece of looking exactly at team names per se as far as where they were going. It just, you got put on a line, it hit enter, and it spit out A plays B, C plays D, et cetera, all the way through. I think I covered all the questions there in the chat real quickly. The quarter rules per week will still be in effect as far as can a player play in a varsity game, then play a JV or C team game on Saturday. Your quarters are still in effect. So that's listed in the bulletin on what your number of quarters are. So that will still be maintained. Now, do remember, because this will come up if we get into quarantine situations, the competitive week in football goes Thursday to Wednesday. Okay, so just keep that in mind when we start looking at a number of quarters in a week. Your competitive week for football is Thursday to Wednesday. So when we start talking about reschedules and dodging quarantines and this and that, you're going to see some varsity games potentially on a Friday, Saturday, or a Monday even. You could have it on a Monday and then turn around and still play on a Friday because you've got the number of days in between that you need, and you're on 2 different weeks. While it's still the same week of the calendar for the school week, it is 2 different weeks for the competitive football week. So just understand that. That may come into play if we get into quarantine situations.
Cool. I have a question. Can I go ahead and
so it's really, you're getting 2 more guys that can be down the field. So you're going to have 2 more guys on the side. You're going to have one that stays closer to the line of scrimmage that can be down for the pass interference type of situations. That's what the 7-man mechanics turn into more when you're looking at the NCAA level versus our 5-man level. And they'll be full-on officials, so they will be there. We're not bringing them in just to watch. They're going to be there to help officiate the game.
Adam, can I ask a question? You there? Can you guys hear me? Anybody?
So we won't play 2 games in a competitive week.
Okay.
We still have to have the bylaws say 1 game in a competitive week, and you have to have 3 days between games. So again, that's where the Monday and Tuesday situation starts to come into effect. You could have 2 games in a week if you have 3 days in between and they're on different competitive weeks. You could have a Tuesday, Saturday game, and that's 2 games in a week, but it's technically 1 game in a competitive week, and you've got the 3 days in between.
Okay. My question is, if a team has 4 games and they're going to make the playoffs, what's to keep them from all of a sudden having COVID for 2 weeks to keep a competitor from getting in because they don't have their 4th game? So if I know I'm tied with someone that's going to get into the playoffs and they need that 4th game, what kind of protections do you have from that team that already has 4 games from going strictly COVID for 2 weeks to keep the other teams from being able to play their 4th game? How do we deal with that? Is that a loss? Do they take a loss, or how does that work? Because there's that can happen in this scenario. So how does that work?
There is gamesmanship that'll happen at the end of the year. It happened in the fall. It is not. To a certain extent, there's not a lot I can do when we get somebody that's doing that. I'm not going to be in a position we haven't been in any other, excuse me, any other sports where we're questioning quarantines and things of that
So
nature.
why don't we just vote and make it a loss or a loss or a bye? Because you're going to either have to keep a standard or lower a standard.
No, we didn't do that in the fall. If we get to the end, what I'm telling you is if we get to the end and you've got 3 games, there's going to be somebody, the way it worked in the fall, there'll be somebody else that we can play. I'm not going to go through and make hybrid situations where on 1,000 different what ifs. If we have somebody that's trying to play that game, we'll need to figure out how do we get that information? How do we know it's accurate or not? What information do you have that tells me that they're actually on quarantine or not? You're not going to have that information either. So we're not going to go through and create those types of situations. We're going to trust that everybody's above board. We're going to do things the right way. And that's going to be the ultimate goal is everybody figures out how to do this the right way, can be a man of character, can be a man of integrity, and do things the right way.
Female.
Okay. So you know about, you obviously know what happened in the fall where there were a couple of teams in the springs that did that. And that was messed up. So just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Coach. Those are folks that aren't going to be high on my list of people I'm calling to reach out to when I need something done. If integrity is a part of the equation, those are not phone calls I'm making.
Hey, Adam, this is Emmy at Centaurus. Hi, everybody. I have a quick question about quarantine from Rhonda's email. So currently with Season B, it's just 14 days for athletes. Is that changing to local control, meaning Boulder County Health could make our quarantine window for athletes 14 days, but other county healths might say, hey, your quarantine for athletes is 10 days only for Season C athletes?
That's going to be up to CDPHE. As of right now, I'm not aware of any changes coming to that. I mean, who knows how things go over the next 6 weeks, but right now they've been pretty solid that athletes are going to be 14 days no matter what the rest of your student population is.
Perfect. So I'm fine as long as it's consistent over the sports, right? Because that would be a bummer if some football teams have only a 7-day athletic quarantine because their local department says 7. But we have a 14.
That'll be up to if CDPHE relaxes those mandates, it will go to local control. But everything else is local control with it too. I mean, as far as if you're allowed spectators, if you're not, your guys are wearing masks when they wrestle. The guys over here in my neighborhood aren't. I mean, it's all going to be, there's going to be variances that are different across the state based on where you are.
And I'm used to that. That one's just kind of a tough one. And then my second question is, I did read the bulletin, but will you go over real quick, practice mask wearing, active participant, and game day mask wearing, just one more time out loud?
So if you are actively involved in a drill on the field, you don't have to have your mask on. If you're on the sideline, you got to have a mask on. Coaches always have a mask on. And then during the game, basically, there's going to be 22 people on the field that don't have a mask on. It's going to be those 22 kids that are actively involved in the game. If you're on the sideline, officials, they were probably 50-50 in the fall as to whether or not they had a mask on. They are not mandated to wear a mask. I believe the majority of them did, especially if they're coming into a pile after they've blown the whistle, they have their mask up, but that is not included in the variance that they must wear a mask. So that would be the only group that would not have a mask on, would be officials that aren't required to. And then also you would have your players that are actively involved in the game, don't have a mask on. When they come to the sideline and they're out of the game, the expectation is they put their mask on. Then the other piece to it is practice. If you're actively involved in a drill, you don't have that mask on. As soon as you're not actively involved and you're standing watching, the mask comes up.
Thank you.
Yep.
Adam, just to reconfirm on the 4 days of practice, so potentially, like you said, Monday, and we have a Friday game, they come straight out of wrestling or basketball. They just need 4 days of padded practice, and then they could potentially play on that Friday, correct?
Correct. I mean, that is going to put a burden on the coach and AD at that building. And I say that only in that a kid that is a starter on the basketball team may be more in shape than a kid that was the 12th guy on the bench that may not have played as much. So you're going to need to make that determination if you think that guy is physically fit, ready to go. So it'll be different because you're not going to be carrying your JV guys and things like that in the playoffs at that point. So you're going to have guys coming from varsity. So my assumption is they should be ready to go, but that is going to be something that's going to be on the local schools to confirm that you believe that person is in shape to go out and not need those ramp up practices.
Okay, thanks.
What else? Now that I got my technical difficulties figured out and I can hear you, any questions that I missed when everybody was talking and I was just having to read off the chat?
Hey, Adam, this is David.
Yes, sir.
So if if a school is only doing a 10-day quarantine and we know it's supposed to be 14, I think we as a district would choose not to play them if we knew that information, that they're not following those guidelines. Where are you on that?
So right now, the way CDPHE has said it, there's not a choice. It is that all athletes must quarantine for 14 days. That is the CDPHE stance. So
Okay.
So CHSAA is saying that you must follow all CDPHE guidelines.
I bring it up because I know there's basketball schools that stayed with the 10 days.
Yep. Let me do a little digging into that. We've got a couple weeks till we get to games, so let me get a little research. I'll send that out to the group on where we're going to be on that one. Because the way it's written right now for basketball is it's not really on the quarantine piece. It's on if somebody's wearing a mask or not. So let me do a little research and get together with the rest of our office staff to develop what that's going to look like. If that's an issue we're going to have going forward, we'll need to develop something that is across all sports. So I don't want to speak for all sports are going to be playing in Season C. Let me get with everyone and we'll send out a message to everybody.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Dominic, I see your question there in the chat. Detailed season information. The bulletin's up that has all the stuff that I've gone over. The only thing it doesn't have is the possible 7-man crew. That's the only thing that's not in that bulletin. Otherwise, that's there, as well as your schedules are already in Max Prep. So that should all be set up for you. If there's other information you need specifically that isn't there, just shoot me an email and I can get it to you. Todd, let's see here. Not that I'm aware of as of yet. Yeah, I'm looking at Emmy on the screen because if somebody's going to, it's going to be her county.
Yeah,
So
it's us. Woohoo. No idea yet about Boulder County. We're just going to do what Adam says right now until we're told differently.
okay, with that, guys, that's kind of the basic information. Sorry, I've got to run into another meeting, and then I'm going to be in the truck in a little bit driving to Pueblo to finalize stuff for wrestling. If you have any questions, email is probably the best for right now, as I'm going to be all over the place the next few days, the next few weeks getting wrestling done. And then my plan is to be out, and I will see you at games over the next 6 to 8 weeks. I'll try to swing by practices like I normally do in the fall, and excited. This is something different. It's definitely one for the record books to have this season. I know the guys in Pueblo are excited about having championships down there again. As we get closer, we'll share more information on exactly what that's going to look like and how that process works. But it's a great venue. It'll be a fun place to have our championship games again, and we'll see everybody there. Oh, that's a good question. I just saw Sully put up coaches poll. Yes, Ryan is going to be sending information out this afternoon about a coaches poll. So we would love to get all spring coaches involved in the coaches poll. And then we will actually have some of our fall coaches as well involved in that, just because they can be people that can go out and watch a few events here and there and help with that. But coaches poll information will be coming out shortly. Okay, I think that's it. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Sorry it was a little rushed. I wanted to get you information before practice starts tomorrow so that we can get rolling. Good luck. We will see you.